Under my workbench there is a lot of space which I mainly use for large parts like timber, beams or buckets. Small parts get lost quickly, but the counterbeams between the legs under my workbench are perfect to put a drawer here. With about 90 centimeters in width, such a drawer would have a good size to store many of the small things currently stored on my workbench. I still have some multiplex left, the material should be enough to make a drawer out of it. Such a drawer basically only consists of 5 parts: the front, the rear, 2 side parts and the bottom. In my case I built everything from the same material. With such a wide drawer I want a stable bottom which can stabilize the whole thing. This part is already too big to be cut with my table saw, therefore I use the hand saw for the rough cut and make the exact cuts at the table saw afterwards. The modular tables are really perfect for placing and cutting such panels in between. Afterwards all edges are sanded briefly so that no splinters protrude where you can cut yourself. I don't have the right length of material for the rear piece anymore, so I put it together from 2 shorter pieces. The connection is made with a lamello dowel. Of course I don't have a clamp that is long enough, so I shorten it a bit. But even if it fits, the clamp is difficult to attach here. The connection is pushed up and you cannot build up any pressure. In such cases you can simply use tape as a clamp replacement, if you stick it well and with a lot of tension. You don't need a lot of pressure on such a small spot. Then fix it in place and press it together and let it dry for a while. holds well. Then I cut the new board into the right dimensions before all parts are sanded again. Now all parts are ready. But how do I actually attach the drawer onto the workbench? There would be several methods available. There are two main categories of drawer runners: the traditional one and the mechanical one. The mechanical one is divided into several subcategories with different attributes. One variant is the roller guide. The drawer runs on rollers that engage in a rail. By a small incline at the end of the rail, a very simple pull-in can be realized. Roller guides, however, are more of a cheap, jerky variant. Today, most drawers are guided with ball bearings. These rails are usually assembled like a telescope and run on bearings that minimize friction between the parts. The luxury versions have a damped self-closing mechanism. When the drawer is pulled out, a small spring is tensioned, which remains tensioned by a lock until the drawer is closed again. Then the spring engages and pulls the drawer back for the last few centimeters. This process is again dampened by an opposing spring or hydraulic system, which catches the drawer and slows it down. This gives you these beautiful, gently running, always fully closing drawers. The guide rails can be attached to the side of the drawer, depending on the design, but are now usually mounted beneath the drawer so that they are not visible. Oh, and light can also be installed. Drawers can be fully extendable or partially extendable, which means you can pull the drawer out of the furniture at different lengths, and the runners come in different degrees of complexity, with adjustments for position and dampening, unlocking mechanisms to remove the drawer, and different maximum loads. On the other hand, there's the traditional drawer runner. It does not require any mechanism or metal and is made entirely of wood. It consists of 3 rails: the kicker, the runner, and the spacer. Let's have a look behind such a drawer to see what it looks like. The drawer is placed on top of the runner, which has the function of carrying it. The drawer also slides on it when you open and close it. The spacer keeps the drawer in line and prevents it from wobbling from side to side. It's fine if it's just sitting in the front part of the furniture. It doesn't have to run all the way through. And it can be used on both sides, so drawers lying next to each other are separated. At the back you can now see the stop lock, which stops the drawer so that it closes flush at the front and prevents it from jamming. Above the drawer we have the kicker. It prevents the drawer from dropping down when it's pulled out and practically presses on the sides of the drawer. If it's not present or broken, it looks like this. All the elements are mirrored to the left and right, but they don't always have to be developed so clearly. Sometimes the runner is just a complete floor and the spacer is just a small attachment on the side. The drawer should then have a slight lower rear so that the air behind it does not build up any cushions when closing and does not create any suction when opening, which would unnecessarily slow down the movement of the drawer. But no matter how precisely you make the guides, how low you build the rear, a traditional guide will never be as smooth and gentle as a mechanical one. With larger drawers, they also tend to jam and can then only be opened by force. This is also why they are rarely used and are increasingly displaced by mechanical guides. I forgot one variant, the hanging guide. Here a groove is milled into the sides of a drawer, into which a single strip then engages, which acts as a runner, kicker and spacer all at once. I would like to use this method for my drawer. For this I need 2 thin strips which I put on the counterbeams on the sides and 2 grooves to the left and right in my drawer. I want to make the grooves with my router. To do this, I set the rib fins precisely, clamp the side pieces and go. But after 2 attempts I changed my mind. The side pieces are too narrow for me to clamp them well. They slip and the groove does not become straight. So I cut them at the table saw. Thereby they don't get as smooth as with the router, but they are perfectly straight. Afterwards I finished them with a chisel. With all the disadvantages, you might ask yourself why I don't use a mechanical guide. Mainly because of money. Such a mechanical guide rail is expensive and quickly costs $60 and more, depending on the configuration. And on the other hand, the traditional runner is more robust. The old principle that the more moving parts the mechanism has, the more prone to error it is, also applies here. The classical guide has only one moving part, the drawer itself. Its modern counterpart has dozens of small parts which have to be lubricated and can fail, making the whole drawer unusable. Mechanical guides are now very robust and I wouldn't have any hesitation in using them, even if it's dusty and dirty, but I still want it to be a traditional one. Now that the side parts are completely finished, all parts can be connected. Therefore I use lamellos again. I mill into the edges or close to the edges and glue the parts flush together. Afterwards I screw the sides together so that I can continue working immediately and don't have to wait until the glue has dried. Then I screw the rear in place without any glue. It doesn't have to carry any weight. Sand the glue a little bit, then I move on to the guide rails. I make them out of beech. Hardwood is a bit smoother than softwood, that's why such rails are traditionally made out of beech. In fact, the sides of my drawer should also have been made of hardwood so that the runners slide smoothly. But then again, yeah. I joined the strips flat, both by machine and by hand. And then the holes for the screws were pre-drilled. This board serves as a spacer, so that the strips on both sides have the same distance to the worktop, and the assembly becomes a bit easier. and it fits. Maybe I could have made the grooves a bit tighter so that they would tip less, but then they would also tend to jam more easily. The drawer front is mounted now so that I can pinpoint its position on the workbench. Therefore I clamp a strip on the front and mill the slots for the lamellos. Clamp it one last time and let it dry for a while. I don't use a handle. The drawer front protrudes a bit on all sides, and since it's mounted hanging, I can simply grab it underneath and pull it up on the front. A handle would only get in the way when working. And the drawer is finished. To make the whole thing run a bit better, you should treat the rails and grooves with proper lubricant. A not ideal but still usable household remedy is candle wax. Rubbing a tea light a few times over the groove and the rail leaves a small wax layer, on which the drawers slide then more easily.